Welcome to Combat Zone with Ben the Bane Davis on Stadium.
Folks, welcome back to the Combat Zone here on Bally's and Stadium. I'm your host, Ben the Bane Davis. What an interesting slew of events we had in the combat sports landscape. An amazing Glory 100 show. UFC Fight Night Atlanta with Buckley and Usman going to war. But before we get into all that, had an interesting weekend. Was commentating 559 fights in Fresno, California, up at Eagle Mountain Casino with my good buddy, UFC title challenger Joe Soto, former UFC vet Nick Maximov notched a pretty big win that evening. Now he's riding a 4-fight win streak since his departure from the UFC. I think it might be in everyone's best interest to get that young man back in the big show. But immediately after calling that on Saturday night, shot right to the airport, got on a flight, took a red eye to Milwaukee, Wisconsin to call APFC 17 on UFC Fight Pass. That was a star-studded event. We had Diego Lopez in the building, Raul Rosas Jr., APFC's lightweight champ, now UFC newcomer Mark Choinsky, came back for a special showing, and it was all fun. But unfortunately, back-to-back action, doing play-by-play, two different states, has rendered the vocal cords a little bit weaker. So apologies for the strain today. All right, let's get into UFC Fight Night, Buckley versus Usman. So before we talk about this main event, which if you watched last week's episode of Combat Zone, you're going to say that went about as Ben predicted. I want to get into what was an interesting result between Rodolfo Bellato and Paul Craig. Now, if you remember, these two were scheduled to fight not too long ago, but Bellato pulled out minutes before the walk. I mean, this was fight night. We were doing the event. Fights were going on, and there was this expectation for Bellato and Craig. But because of a herpes contraction, Rodolfo Bellato withdrew from that evening's action. Now, I don't know how the herpes played into this one, right? Because, I mean, I'm not an STD expert, right? Never had any experience myself, thankfully, right? Knock on wood. But I thought that was one you couldn't, right, solve. So for him to be rebooked, quite peculiar. And as if this couldn't get any weirder, this saga with Paul Craig and Rodolfo Bellato, this time around, an errant up kick from Paul Craig leaves Bellato unconscious, knocked out. I'm not sure. Anthony Lionheart-Smith on the post-show said that Bellato is faking. I have to agree with Anthony Smith. I just don't have any real ability to believe Bellato's antics in there, because after he eats this up kick, he's falling backwards and looks at the referee. He makes eye contact with the referee and throws his arms up like, "Ref, what's going on? Why aren't you intervening?" And then flops backwards like a fish, pretends to be unconscious, and then wakes up startled and starts playing guard with the referee. Rodolfo Bellato, if you're trying to finagle a disqualification victory, you're going to need to do it in more convincing manner. I would usually suggest fighters go back to the gym and train their tools, sharpen all their abilities. But for Bellato, I think I would almost encourage some improv classes or maybe some high school acting. Also on the card, in the main event, you had Kamaru Usman with an In Case You Forgot performance. Now, I was very skeptical about Joaquin Buckley's run at 170. Obviously, it was fantastic. He was taking out the nursing home. The retirement center was getting rampaged by Buckley. But Kamaru Usman is cut from some more elite cloth while he is at the advanced age of 38. Let's not forget, this is the second best welterweight of all time. And there was just such big grappling upside in this that I couldn't see it going any other way than it did. Now, Buckley's power and his looping crazy shots did present some problems in round 5, but I mean, rounds 1 through 4, it just doesn't get cleaner. Did what he had to do. Usman gets his hand raised for the first time since 2021, I believe. What a great effort, a reminder. And I'd love to see him versus Bilal Muhammad. I think that's the fight that we can run next. They've got history. There's this podcast episode on Usman's Pound for Pound pod that Bilal came on. They got into a fist fight. The podcast episode has never been released. So I'm thinking we book this fight, release the podcast, and have two unks fight it out. Additionally, on this card, there was the biggest betting favorite in UFC history, which feels like something we always have to say, right? The goalpost keeps getting moved. At one point, it was Bare Knuckle, and then it was, I believe, another fighter this year. Now, Malcolm Wellmaker, the Machine, against Chris Moutinho. What a knockout. I mean, cleans this kid out inside 3 minutes. The returning Chris Moutinho did speak a lot in the build-up and the lead-up to this short notice opportunity about his mindset and the depths of depression that he'd sunk into. And I do hope that he's doing well and healing okay and taking solace in the fact that nobody else was signing on to fight this kid for this exact reason. Now, at 31 years old, Malcolm Wellmaker is a bit of an aged prospect in the bantamweight division. That's not really a weight class where you can have so much success once you're north of 30, 31, 32. But we'll see what Wellmaker's ceiling is with 2 knockouts, 2 performance bonuses inside the UFC. I think that Malcolm Wellmaker is going to get shot up the rankings, fast-tracked to the top, maybe a title shot down the line for the former welder, right? That could be something seriously interesting. Now, today's episode, we've got some really fun stuff for you, an interview with PFL and ESPN's Ian Parker, and a great chat with BKFC founder and president Dave Feldman, getting all the latest on all sides of combat sports. Can't wait for it, all here on Combat Zone. Folks, it's an honor and a pleasure to have ESPN analyst and PFL talent, Ian Parker, the Duck himself, inside the booth this week. Ian, how are you?
I'm great, man. We got a busy week. We got PFL tomorrow in Nashville. Then we got UFC in Atlanta. And then we got International Fight Week coming up. So we got MMA galore, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Let's do it.
It's a great time to be in the world of combat sports for sure. I want to take all the attention to a little event in Wichita, right? We're taking it to Kansas. Talk to me about this. Kevin Lee coming in late notice against Godzi Rabadanov. Kind of an interesting fight, right? J.J. Wilson out with a broken jaw. Kevin Lee in. Talk to me about this.
What just happened?
You are Duck McDuckerson is frozen on my screen.
Am I good now or no?
You're good now. Yeah, you're good now.
That was weird. Yeah, you froze. My bad. Sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Kevin Lee taking on Godzi Rabadanov. J.J. Wilson out with a broken jaw. Lee's in. Is he going to play the part of sacrifice or savior? What's in store for Kevin?
You know what? I'm going to try and spin this in the most positive way that you can, right? In that, well, look, let's call it what it is, right? The MMA community is not stupid, okay? And I think everyone was genuinely excited for J.J. Wilson versus Godzi Rabadanov. Genuinely was. And when an injury like that happens, which is very unfortunate, it is the sport. The question is, all right, who are you going to get to fill in? You know, there were a couple of alternates. To my knowledge, they were also not prepared to fight. So to answer your question, I think this is just a massive opportunity for Kevin Lee, right? He's not getting paid the earth and the sun to come over because of his name. I can tell you that. He's really not getting a crazy bag for it. But what he is getting is a chance to skip around what he wouldn't be able to in order to get back into the UFC or get into the PFL a different way. He's going into a fight with the number 1 guy in the division, not named Usman Nurmagomedov or Paul Hughes. And if he wins, you know, he's got a good shot in winning the whole thing and then getting a title shot after that. Now, does he beat Godzi Rabadanov? That's a whole different story. But, you know, because Godzi is a champion who just keeps on getting better, which is scary. But for Kevin Lee, man, I just think this is a fantastic opportunity for someone who's been around the sport for a while. I was at Kill Cliff last week doing a feature with him. He looks like he's in incredible shape. His power is there. His speed looks good. You know, and I'm not just saying that to market the fight. Genuinely, the video will be out. He looks good. But will he be good enough to beat Godzi? I don't know. But, you know, an opportunity knocks. How could he say no to this?
And you mentioned, right, the alternates, many of them maybe weren't ready or were dealing with other obligations. Can you shed some light on who else could have stepped in for J.J. Wilson? Because that was a point of criticism, I would say. Everyone was going, doesn't the PFL have anyone else above Kevin Lee? But
I think the one thing that the PFL will work on in the future, or I could tell you firsthand I'll be more prepared on, is having a stronger level of alternates to put in there. Right? Because I think people are going to be like, oh, they had some alternates, but they don't have big names. You know, the one guy who they were looking to get in there was the one who almost pulled off the upset against Brent Primus. Last, I think it was Cece of some nature, or Cincy or Cersei. See, I don't even remember his last name because he kind of came out of left field. But he was really tough. He almost took out Primus, you know, in round 2. It came down to round 3. So I think he would have been the guy from an alternate standpoint that would have fit in. But I believe he wouldn't have been ready. And that's why they
Yeah.
kind of went fishing elsewhere. Otherwise, granted, my belief is regardless of name, if you got an alternate in there, that's who you go to. And I think the PFL went to Kevin Lee, not as a last resort, meaning like, oh, they had to, but it was like, we don't have any alternates right now. Who's out there that we could bring in? And then this happened. So
Yeah. You mentioned Usman Nurmagomedov a moment ago.
mhm.
Seemingly on this card, there is a bout attached to him in some way, shape, or form. Mansur Barnui and Archie Colgan. Now, this is touted as the number one contender fight, the next in line for Usman Nurmagomedov, but that kind of leaves Paul Hughes out to dry. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this and if there is any development on that bout.
I think I have a feeling that that will be changed to the number one contender to get the winner
Mhm.
of Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov. I really couldn't imagine it being any other way. I was as surprised as everyone else was because Hughes and Nurmagomedov is the fight to make. It's arguably one of the best fights in general, regardless of promotion to put out there.
Mhm.
And unless the PFL, unless Hughes is injured, which he's not, and unless the PFL feels like getting Nurmagomedov a fight prior to that to build it up, but I wouldn't risk injury. I wouldn't risk a loss because, I'll tell you this, I think someone like Archie Colgan is someone to keep an eye on. He's a very dangerous fighter, good wrestler, got a lot of power. And in this sport, you never know. And I hate to waste that opportunity to do Hughes versus Nurmagomedov. So my gut's telling me that announcement, yes, it was put on Twitter. I have a feeling, though, that Dom Davis, who's made some really good decisions this week between the app and the ticket pricing. I have
Mhm.
a funny feeling he may come in and be like, you know what? I think we may have jumped the gun on this. I think there may have been some miscommunication here. The winner, because honestly, if it announces as the winner with the number one contender, that would make more sense to me, right? And then you have the winner of this tournament, and now the number two behind the winner of Colgan and Mansouri. So I think that will get cleaned up. At least that's my hope.
And we'll chalk that up to just, a development miscommunication there. I'm
I hope
curious.
so.
I hope so too. You mentioned Archie Colgan's wrestling, right? The power that he carries. I'm curious, what advantages does Mansur Barnui bring into this? Obviously, he's got the experience, but what other pieces on paper can Barnui present to Colgan?
I mean, look, submissions, right? Striking. He's had experience fighting on, he's had the higher level experience, I guess, if you want to call it that, just based on
Yeah.
what he was doing with PFL Europe and Bellator to begin with. However, I do think this is a very good matchup for Archie Colgan. Colgan's striking on the feet, his speed is very good, and the power that he carries is there. He is a tank for 55. So if you get hit by him, it's truly clobbering time. So I do think that Mansouri will have to find a way to take the back of Colgan. Otherwise, or hope that Colgan gets tired. If not, I feel like he's going to be in for a long night or a short night, however you want to skin that cat. But I think Archie Colgan is one of the better prospects out there that flies under the radar pretty heavily.
Last fight on this June 20th, Wichita, Kansas card that I want to dig into is Magomed Magomedov, returning for his first fight since losing the split decision to Patchy Mix. What are you expecting from him in this return?
Well, look, I thought he beat Patchy in that last
Mhm.
fight. That win doesn't look as good based on Patchy or loss based on what Patchy just did.
Yeah.
I think Magomedov is really, really solid. He's a very well-rounded fighter. I think if he went to the UFC, he could compete in the top 10. I expect him to come in there and put on a show. I think he was very disappointed to miss out on that opportunity to fight Leandro Higo. I think had he did, he would have won, probably would have won the tournament. So I'm expecting him to go out there. If he gets an early finish or goes out there and really impresses, I'd love to see him be right behind the winner of Stotts and Sergio Pettis for a title shot. I think that is someone you could build a division around or kind of really build the depth with because he really is a good fighter. He's not a boring Dagestani wrestler. The guy could really strike. He goes for the finishes. I think it's just another special talent that a lot of people maybe haven't heard of because, he fought for Bellator and he's yet to jump in with the PFL. So.
And, when you think about Magomed, right, the two losses to Patchy, lost to Ralphion Stotts, only elite caliber fighters. I believe Piotr Jan is the other guy that beat him. Those four, right, are his losses, and they're all to the best. Is there anything that the undefeated Savarjan Hamidov can present to Magomedov to be the fifth guy to appear on that loss?
He's got to do what Patchy did, I guess, right? He's got to sub
Mm,
him early, or he's got to find a way to take him off his game. But when we saw Magomedov, the name's so nice they did it twice, right? I think with him, what he showed in that Patchy fight was a lot of adjustments, and I really
mm,
did. I'm not a Patchy hater at all. I love Patchy Mix. I don't it doesn't I'm not one that's bothered that he went to the UFC. That's going to happen. It's not what he'll be. It's not the first fighter. It's not going to be the last fighter that goes if the opportunity presents itself. However, I think for Magomedov, it's just he's his own worst enemy. If he
mm.
doesn't dictate the pace, if he doesn't control the narrative, and he allows someone else to kind of throw him off his game, that's on him. Otherwise, I think there's very few people that could beat him. Good cardio, good wrestling. And when people think of the Magomedovs, they don't think of the striking, right? But this dude can
Yeah.
really strike. Very good angles, very unexpected kicks, combinations, doesn't throw one punch at a time. Just a very smart fighter overall.
Love it. That's the first half of our interview with PFL and ESPN's Ian Parker. More to come here on Combat Zone. Folks, welcome back to Combat Zone. Let's look ahead to this weekend's UFC action. History making, the first UFC event ever in Baku, Azerbaijan, and kind of odd main event when you think about this. Now, Rafael Fiziev, an Azerbaijani, is appearing on this card, so you've got some local hometown talent favoring to the Baku crowd, but Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree don't really have much connection to Baku, I don't believe. And this was an interesting one that was booked initially for UFC Kansas City in April. Jamal Hill had to withdraw with an injury. That was never really disclosed or discovered what it was, but it's been rebooked as a main event. Now, Jamal Hill riding a 2-fight losing streak. Alex Pereira TKO'd him, and Yuri Prohaska TKO'd him at UFC 311 in January. In the last couple of years, Jamal Hill has had 4 different fight cancellations. Now, not all of them are his fault. I don't want to blame Jamal Hill completely, but there are just some serious questions about what version Jamal Hill is going to be coming into this, right? Because when you think about last year at UFC 303, had to pull out due to some lingering ACL issues, a couple meniscus tears, and a cyst, pulled out again of UFC Kansas City with an injury. I just have concern and caution that Jamal maybe in these moments where his body is telling him that he needs to stop, that he needs a break, is continuing to push through and either train hard, accept these fights, be booked in camp. And that's just not conducive to, an extremely healthy lifestyle. At 34 years old, Jamal Hill isn't exactly the youngest guy on the roster anymore. And you need to be more mindful. You got to be more careful about the recovery and all of the all the boxes that you need to check. Meanwhile, Khalil Roundtree also looking to bounce back. Now, this guy is a savage. We saw his gutsy effort against Alex Pereira. Didn't pan out for him that evening, but I think in terms of losses that are wins, that is about the dictionary definition for Khalil Roundtree. Made tons of fans that night, earned so much respect. Wasn't exactly the most deserving contender at that time, but just circumstances played out the way they did, and he got this golden opportunity and tried to make the most of it, even knocking down former champion Alex Pereira. I anticipate Khalil Roundtree to have a lot of success against Jamal Hill. I think Jamal's got cleaner striking, and we have seen Khalil have some durability issues, right? Alex TKO'd him, Johnny Walker TKO'd him back in the day. So when you touch the chin of Khalil Roundtree, people have found ways to put him to the canvas, but I just don't know what version of Jamal is going to show up. I just can't trust it. Also appearing on this card, we've got some returning fan favorites, right? Ignacio Bahamondes taking on the aforementioned Rafael Fiziev in the co-main, and Curtis Blades taking on Rizvan Kuniev. Now, Kuniev getting this really established heavyweight in his, I believe, debut here off the Contender Series. This might be a little bit too much too soon. Curtis Blades is a really stellar product at heavyweight. Great wrestling, great power. Yes, he has durability issues. It's because it's heavyweight. Everybody in the 265-pound division hits like a truck. Nazim Sadikov also appearing on this card against Nicholas Mota. Mota having a bit of a career revival following an excellent performance in his last fight. Sadikov 10-1 overall. He's a really, really fun fighter in the 155-pound division. Muhammad Naimov and Bogdan Grad kick things off in the featherweight division. So UFC Baku, we'll see. Khalil Roundtree did speak about some jet lag that he's struggling with, which I I think could affect some of the other fighters on this card that are traveling the distance, right? Khalil trains and lives in Vegas. Baku's 11 hours ahead of Las Vegas. So that's going to be a big question for this first event in Baku. What shape are these Western fighters in? And if we are returning to Baku and they're severely impacted by it, maybe we give a opportunity, some more chances to those that live in Asia, Africa, other parts of the world to appear on a card that's more in the region that they're based out of. So can't wait for it. UFC Baku. Don't miss it. Now we've got the next half of our interview with PFL and ESPN's Ian Parker getting into all the updates on the world of PFL here on Combat Zone.
Is there a division inside the PFL or a world tournament that currently has most of your attention? Maybe great matchups or just 4 great fighters that have made it to the semifinals. Where is your excitement really defined?
Truthfully, my excitement is in the fresh blood and that we're getting. Over the last few years in the PFL, it's been a lot of recycled fights, right? You see a lot of the same guys. This year, it's the most new people we have. At middleweight, you get a guy like Dalton Rasta, who's a very marketable fighter, exciting fighter, and the storyline just worked out where he gets to compete against Aaron Jeffrey, who took his only L. And I don't think Aaron Jeffrey looked particularly great in that last fight, arguably could have lost as well. But Jeffrey is a tough out for anyone because of his grappling, his durability. So that's a fun one. I don't know how you don't love Braga and Jesus Pinedo. Literally, I wouldn't mind if the PFL said, hey, we're going to start doing a best-of-7 series and just let the two of them beat the heck out of each other for a year and a half straight. I would love that. I love me some Jesus Pinedo, and I love Braga, too. Braga is a lot of fun. I've never seen him this way. He's very chatty this time around, which is, out of his element, but maybe he just really hates Pinedo because Pinedo, is the only one who gave him a loss. And then, look, Thad Gene and Jason Jackson. It's I only wish that this was the championship fight, because to me, if Thad loses a close fight, he's still good. Stock is there. And if Thad goes out there and just smokes Jackson, you have a star, and Jason is still a very good fighter. So for me, I love the Thad, the Jason fight, Pinedo Braga, I like Dalton. The light heavyweights, you know what? I am curious in guys like Sullivan Cauley getting a chance in Phil Davis. Phil Davis, huge revival by knocking out Wilkinson. He hasn't had a knockout since like 1903, so that was interesting to see that. I did not think he was going to do that, man, and I'm happy for him because that was really cool. Fabian Edwards looked great against Impa. Josh Silveira has a head made of cement, so getting him out is really tough. A lot of, like I said, we just get a lot of different matchups. And then with the women, here's what's cool about the women's fights too. All right, you got someone in Liz Carmouche, which she just has the fountain of youth, right? She doesn't age, and she's getting better with age. She's fighting a very good young prospect in Lorna, who just won by finish in the first round. And then you got Sharapova, who just went out there and just crushed in her last fight against Jenna Bishop, good submission ace, and was in a complete dogfight. So you're getting prospect versus vet, with both vets being good, and only one out of the 4 of them has fought Dakota. So I would assume if Dakota beats Inaba later on, she'll fight the winner of the world tournament for the vacant belt, which would make sense to me. I think everyone assumes it'd be Liz Carmouche, which I wouldn't even be mad at. But I just, what it is, man, with the PFL this year, and I'm not just saying this out of bias, it just feels different. You're getting different names. You're getting younger prospects that are making a splash. You're getting a lot of finishes. And even in the heavyweight division, like the Moldavsky versus Romanov, I'm good with that fight. That's a cool fight for me. I think Romanov needed a fresh start as well. And Moldavsky cannot fight like he did in that last one because that was atrocious.
Well, and like you mentioned, changing from the point system and the complexity of what the PFL was doing for years to this single elimination, you win, you advance. It cannot get simpler. I think it's certainly helped things. I'm curious on that note, right? Twisting and changing the tournament style. Is there a world in which maybe in the future we can get one-night tournaments with the PFL? I know that was such a big thing back in the day for combat sports, Pride, the Strike Force. Is there a world in which maybe PFL could revive that?
I haven't heard anything. I think the biggest issue why people are getting away from that is because you tend to not have what you think you're going to have due to injuries and whatever it is, right? Sure. I mean, if you look back, Sean O'Connell took off the headset to fight, right? Because they were and won the $1 million, right? Chris Curtis went to the back, retired. Was heading to
They
the car.
came back out.
They're like, hey, quick question for you. You mind getting back into your shorts and fighting? And then he got, and then he obviously lost to Ray Cooper. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, you know what I would do? It's an idea that can work if you do it, I think, with prospects, right? So instead of doing, because the PFL once did a challenger series that was their version of the contender series, maybe you do something like that, but as a one-night tournament with prospects. Do the contract that way, Do a four-man, win 2 fights, get a contract type of thing with your 4 best prospects at the bottom of the division. I don't hate that idea. That could be unique and different. Why not?
It would streamline the viewing experience, certainly. You wouldn't have to wait a couple weeks to to get the resolution.
Sure.
And talking about resolution, let's talk about a situation that seemingly has had no movement. Francis Ngannou. Now, I'm curious, what is the development here? Because there's rumors that he's open to a UFC return. Obviously, the longstanding belief is that he wants to box further. Where does this leave the PFL?
Well, Francis said on Twitter, to John Jones, I'll take care of the PFL, you take care of Aspinall, essentially, and then we can figure this out later. Here's what I can tell you what I know, and I have no problem sharing this with you. Francis is happy with the PFL. I mean, and that doesn't mean that he's not open to a conversation with the UFC. Why wouldn't he be if the right opportunity came along? It'd be crazy not to. I think, to your point, boxing is going to get paid a crazy amount. And there's maybe another couple of fights that they feel like they could put that can draw interest. Who knows? I think, he really is passionate about PFL Africa, sitting on the board and doing that. And the PFL has already announced a second event for that. He is involved with that. And last but not least, with him fighting, I think what it really comes down to, man, like truthfully anything, is they're going to spend it's a lot of money to pay him.
Yeah.
The question is, who is worth it for the PFL? And for Francis to come back, okay? Because if he's going to come back at risk, if you want to call it legacy, he's going to do that in boxing and make triple the amount, right? So I think the matchup would have to be really appealing to him. I would have to do something for the PFL and not a one-off. I think storyline was, Francis beating Renan Ferreira, that was marketed to be this monster at the time. It was cool, right? Because Francis was out for a couple of years, fighting someone very dangerous and huge and athletic, but he made it look very easy. So my dream matchup for him outside the UFC, if you want to hear it, and you didn't even ask me, I'm going to share it anyway. I would like to see him fight Nemkov. I'd like to see him versus Nemkov at heavyweight. I think that is a fight the fans would be very happy seeing. If he were to win that fight, the question is from there, though, what does the PFL do? I would have to assume he retires from competition after that because there really would be nothing left for him, right? But if Nemkov won, then Francis could ride off into the sunset. You could do a second fight. Nemkov could be now built up as this, heavyweight because, the general fan doesn't know who he is still, maybe, but real MMA fans truly do, and he's a very talented guy. So, I don't think Francis is going anywhere. I do think he's very happy with the PFL. I think to say that he's open to a conversation with the UFC, I think, who said that? His coach, right? I don't think that came from nowhere. I think that definitely probably has some truth behind that. He would be open, but I also don't know how much Francis is willing to do the UFC any favors. Right. But isn't it funny how all these hypothetical, more than likely non-existent things get the most attention these days in the sport? It's unbelievable. No, it really is crazy. It's unbelievable to me how this is like the only sport in the world where we can come up with these hypothetical what ifs. And that's what takes the attention for weeks upon end. So
it dominates the news cycle. I have a quick follow up on that. You mentioned Nemkov and how there's just maybe nothing else there. I mean, Ian, you're dousing a lot of water on the flames of a Parker Porter matchup. I mean, that guy has, I would say, deserved this big shot against Ngannou.
I know you're a big Parker Porter. Yeah, who doesn't love Parker Porter, right? So wait, what's your question? Is Nemkov fighting Parker Porter? Is that what we were going into?
Well, I'm thinking maybe we do Nemkov and Ngannou with Parker Porter as a special guest referee, and if there's a steel chair that Parker produces in that fight, then maybe he'll have to use it. All right, let's turn the conversation to something you mentioned earlier, right? The $25 ticket pricing for that tier 1 entry level GA ticket and this free app. I mean, it seems like there is a lot of consumer-friendly decision-making behind the PFL strategy this year. Can you enlighten us? I mean, where did the ticket pricing in this app come from?
Well, look, I think well, again, we can be very honest here. When PFL posts anything, there's always an automatic negative before a positive, just because that seems to be what people like to do. And I get a little confused, man, because in my opinion, it's nice to have some other MMA to watch on a non-conflicting night of the UFC. They're not conflicting. You don't have to choose. And there are, despite what people may think, a lot of fighters in the PFL and that were from Bellator that will do fine in the UFC, have done fine, and just whatever. And there's a lot of guys that come from the UFC to the PFL and did absolutely terrible, right? We've seen that quite a few times too. You know, Shane Burgos, someone who left in his prime, did not have success in the PFL. And I love Shane to death. It just didn't work out well for him at the time for whatever reason. But I think the PFL notices that after a long period of time, they want to make changes, they want to do the right thing, and they want to grow. I think that they're being smarter about speaking about the UFC. You know, it doesn't have to be a comparison to what the UFC is doing, because let's be honest, there is no comparison, right? You could take what you see from the fans that they don't like about the UFC. And I think one of the biggest complaints in the last 6 months to a year has been ticket prices for pay-per-views. That's probably been one of the two biggest complaints outside of, you want to call it watered down pay-per-view cards and Apex events, right? So when Don kind of saw this, I think he said, you know what? We need to do something a little different. We need to fill the building, of course, because I think if you get fans in the building and if pricing is part of it, the PFL fights this season, I think it was like a 74% finish rate amongst with all the weight classes included, including the women, which you don't always expect. So I think if you get people in the building and the fights are good, you will build a fan base. And that's how it should be. So I think that was where the idea came from. In regards to the app, in my opinion, the app is the smartest thing out of all the ideas, because between PFL Europe, PFL MENA, Africa Pacific, you know, MMA is an international sport. And a lot of these prospects and best fighters in the world are coming from outside the United States, just as a coincidence right now. That could obviously change in any week, whatever it is. But how are US fans supposed to get knowledge of some of these awesome names? You know, guys like a James McGrill and even a Paul Hughes Pryor. What if they produce the next Ngannou out of Africa or the next Volk out of Pacific? You know, without watching, we won't know. The app gives you the opportunity to do it and to do it for free.
Yeah. Talking about maybe a next Francis that just popped in my brain. Did you see, I put a tweet out on this, Cyril Gahn's training partner named David. Yeah, Dave, this 22-year-old. I'm not saying, listen, I don't want to be talent recruiting for you guys, but maybe Dave could be someone you snatch up.
Yeah, you know what? I tried to Google Sharedog Dave and he didn't show up. So, you know, if you want, first off, that dude is a mammoth. That's got to be edited. When I saw when you posted that, I was like, first off, I love it that much more that we're just going by the one name, and it's Dave. Not even
purely
like,
Dave. Not even his last name.
Like
not even a French name. Dave is like a very
yeah. It's like, hey Dave. Hi Dave. I was expecting like a Sebastian out of France. Right?
Yeah.
Nope. Good old Dave. So,
maybe we'll see
Dave
him
over,
soon.
why not?
We're just running out of time. Ian, thank you so much for the time today. Guys, make sure you check out this weekend Gadzi Rabadanov and Kevin Lee. Can he make the most of this stellar opportunity, or will what many expect to occur come to fruition? June 20th, Wichita, Kansas. Only one way to watch. I think it's on ESPN, Ian. Is that true?
That is true. Accurate statement.
I love it. All right, Ian, thank you again. We'll touch base soon.
You got it, brother.
Massive thank you to Ian Parker for talking shop and breaking down all things PFL. Still to come here on Combat Zone, Dave Feldman and the Penny Parlay. Up next here on Combat Zone. Folks, welcome back to the Combat Zone. Our second guest of the day is the founder and president of the fastest growing sport in the combat sports world. It's BKFC founder Dave Feldman.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a pleasure to have one of the most ambitious people in combat sports. He is the founder of BKFC, the fastest growing combat sport in the world. Dave Feldman, how are you, sir?
What's going on, Ben? How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. It's great to chat with you. Now let's talk about this Texas show. Long time coming, bringing Bare Knuckle to the Lone Star State. Can you detail some of the bigger hurdles, either commission related or otherwise, that's prevented Bare Knuckle from Texas before?
Yeah, man, it's just, it's more of the same really that we dealt with through this journey of BKFC. You have some commission hurdles, you have, 10 people in the commission that want it, you have one that's objecting to it, and they pull whatever strings they can to not get it there. I think some of that stuff happened in Texas. I also think that, there's other very, very big promotions in the world that were in Texas and didn't really want us there at the time. And I think that just, keep selling these tickets, right? We're selling these tickets all over the world. And I think, everybody wants to be a part of the ticket sales. They want the ticket tax revenue. They want the revenues that it's going to generate for the state. So I think, like what I said at first, I said, when I first started this thing, I said, the media is not covering us. Soon they're going to have to cover us. And then I said, soon they're going to have to let us in. And that's just what's happening with a lot of these states. They're just letting us in because they can't really say no to us. They don't have any reason to say no to us. Now, right before they did, we didn't have all the data. We didn't have everything, that they needed to really give us the approval without any hiccups at all. But now we have all that. So it's hard to take no's nowadays.
Did you expect maybe that type of resistance from the powers that be in the combat sports world as a promoter, or was that maybe new when this all started in 2018?
I mean, for the first few years, I never got resistance from the powers to be on that respect. And now it's actually like it's getting a little annoying now, but it was like a pleasure. It was like the best like screw you I've ever got. I'm like, wow, these guys are trying to block me from going to different states. That's pretty cool, right? Because they're not going to block us if we're not if we're not if we're quiet, if we're not making any noise. We're making noise. We're putting on great events. People are talking about us. We are, I think, the fastest growing combat sport in the world. I mean, we're selling tickets, and it's just hard to say no nowadays.
Becoming undeniable for sure. Now, this Texas show had a main event switch up at the midnight hour due to Franco Tanaglia's visa complications, but Ben Bonner getting the opportunity of a lifetime. This kid's 3-1 in BKFC. What made him the right choice to step in, Dave?
We had a bunch of guys that we talked to, and it was such short notice. I can't make the weight, or if I'm going to fight this, I want this gigantic amount of money, and it just didn't fit for us. And Ben Bonner, we talked to our UK people, and they said, Ben Bonner, give him a call. I gave him a call, very, very reasonable, wanted the opportunity of a lifetime, and this is an opportunity of a lifetime for him. He's going to get a shot to fight in front of 8,000 to 10,000 people, in front of millions of people around the world on television, and here he is. He's going to seize the opportunity, or attempt to seize the opportunity this Saturday. And he's coming off of 2 viral knockouts. That was the real thing for me personally. I was like, everything else was great. It fit in. But I was like, wow, this guy's coming off of 2 viral knockouts. And this is the kind of thing we want for a main event.
Got to have the X factor that pushes him over the line.
Sure, absolutely.
Also, Andrei Arlovsky's BKFC debut on this card. What are you expecting from the former UFC champ?
I mean, I want to see, the Andrei Arlovsky that moves forward and is very aggressive and is trying to knock his opponent out. I think you're going to. You have a very, very tough Josh Copeland in front of him, who fought Bing Ben Rothwell. He fought a couple other guys with BKFC. He's always tough. He can punch too. He can really punch. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, nobody walks into BKFC, really, these bigger names, and gets a gift. And, we definitely didn't give him a gift by putting Josh Copeland in front of him.
David, that's how I felt as well. Now, talking about former UFC heavyweights, Big Parker Porter, back-to-back first-round TKOs in BKFC, main eventing a show. What was your assessment of his most recent performance?
What I like to see about all the BKFC fighters, I like to see that they can take punishment, they can come back from adversity, and they can do what they had to do. He got dropped in round 1. Fast into the fight. He got hit with a nice punch, got dropped, got back up, and then scored a knockout. That's what I want to see. That tells me that there is really good star potential there, because these guys can stand in there, bang it out, take the worst of it, and then come back and score a knockout. And that's what Parker Porter did. And, very, 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 very good performance from him against hard punching Dylan Kleckler. So, I think there's a bright future for him.
How aware were you and the BKFC brass of Parker Porter's almost meme type person, like popularity within the MMA community? Were you guys aware of that when you signed him?
I think Nate was a little bit. I wasn't as much, but I have obviously become, and I think that he's something that I think we can build him. Though I really do think we can build him. I mean, the crowd was crazy for him on
Yeah.
Saturday night up there. So I think it's something we can build for sure.
And talk about building, that would all lead to Ben Rothwell, who's currently scheduled with Alex Simon headlining in Australia. Super heavyweight division. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, that fight unfortunately is not going to take place because we had
Oh,
some difficulties in Perth with the regulatory there. It just wasn't the timing wasn't right for it. We're going to reschedule that for October, but I think Ben's probably going to fight before then, probably against the same opponent. But that's a great opponent. I mean, here's a guy who has a very good kickboxing background, who is a world strongman competitor. I mean, strong as an ox, can punch like crazy, and I think it's going to be a fun fight. And that's something that we are going to see Ben. In the near future, Ben Rothwell will be back. He's one of the biggest guys, literally and figuratively, in BKFC, and we can't wait to see him back in there.
let's look back at this June 6th event, which broke Stadium and Bally's viewership records for the year, surpassing even the numbers for that blockbuster Philadelphia event in January. Dave Mundell. I mean, this guy just keeps getting better, David.
No, he definitely does. I mean, he has, he's another guy. He gets dropped a lot in his fights. He gets up and he scores great knockouts. And again, I love seeing that because it tells me they got a ton of heart and they really, really want this. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to be the best. And that's what Dave Mundell's doing. I mean, no one has been able to beat him in the in the near past, and I think it's going to be hard to beat him moving forward. I wouldn't I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I would love to see him fight Mike Perry. I don't think that's going to be next for Perry because I think we got a huge announcement coming up for Perry in the next 2 weeks. And I think people are going to be excited about that. But, I'd love to see something like that happen.
Any further updates I can dig on that Platinum Perry update from you?
It's an opponent that I think a lot of people are going to be a little surprised at, and a lot of people are going to be very, very interested in. I can't really
As
go
always,
much yet.
that's the BKFC promise. Intrigue. That's what you
There
deliver.
you go.
Now, this was your seventh time in New Mexico. When you think of cities or countries that you can't wait to go back to, does any specific places pop to mind?
I mean, Philadelphia was huge. Like doing the smaller events here that we're doing in July, that's going to be a great event. But doing the big event at Wells Fargo Arena, that's going to be great. Actually just had a great meeting with the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. We have an event coming up, but we're going to announce that soon. That's going to be in mid-fall timeframe. That's going to be a great place. I mean, I love going to Florida. I just love going there because the fans are crazy. We sell it out fast, and it's an amazing place to do fights. I I probably would be easier for me to tell you a place I don't like to go than place I like to go because I mean we get such a reception all around the world. I mean Spain was amazing. Obviously you were there and fought on that card. Italy was just great. I mean went through the roof. Like the sound of the crowd was amazing. Dubai, I would definitely want to go back there. I think I was really looking forward to this Australian one. So when we go there in October, I'm going to be very, very excited about that one.
Is there any plans for a Marbella return? I mean, the redemption arc might have to happen, Dave.
Maybe. I mean, listen, let me tell you something. I told you, if you remember before the fight, I said, hats off to you for having the balls to do this. I did say that because a lot of people talk and not a lot of people back it up, and you did. And I would absolutely let you do that again, without a doubt.
Well, let's talk about Florida some more. July 12th, you're back at the Hard Rock Live. Last time, this was a really star-studded evening. Connor was there. Shaquille O'Neal appeared. Is there anyone crazy on the guest list for this one on July 12th?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think more of the same, and we're doing a partnership right now with about 10 NFL players, and that should be concluded by then. And I expect to see all 10 of them at the event. We do have Max Crosby on our list. I think Max is going to show up as well. He's one of our partners as well. So we have a lot of guys. I think as I'm watching some of these other events that are happening, I think the only thing we're missing at a lot of these events is having the star-studded attendance and capturing it the right way. Not just having them there, but capturing that they're there and getting it viral. And I think that's going to be a real push for what we're going to do starting on that event and moving forward into the remainder of the year.
It's certainly one thing having the eye candy in the front row, but if you're not, using them in a dynamic manner, it is kind of wasted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there other maybe celebrity figures you'd love to see getting involved at BKFC in deeper ways? You mentioned Crosby. Obviously, Conor McGregor has been such a huge promotional asset. Is there a dream wish list of other celebs you'd want to get
We
involved
just
in
got,
deeper?
I mean, Shaq, I'd love to get him in. I'd love to really
Yeah.
put him in here right now. I mean, we've had some great talks. He's a great guy, and I'd love to get him in. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of guys out there right now that we're talking to, really. And I don't want to put their names out there, but once, signed, sealed, and delivered, we'll be able to announce them. But I mean, I don't have anybody really in particular right now. The one guy that I can't mention is the guy that I've been trying to get for 3 years. And when this thing's signed in the next couple of weeks, I think a lot of people are going to be, wowed by that one.
I love it. Maybe that'll go in tandem with the Mike Perry announcement, drop them both at the same time.
Could be.
Last two topics I want to chat with you about. That $25 million tournament. Is there any substantial update or development in that?
Not really. We had to actually push that off into 2026. We do.
Okay.
The start date is going to be March 2026. We are doing it. It's just with these other things that we've been doing, and having some internal problems with some of our partners that we had to square that away. And I don't want to talk too much about that right now, but we had some infrastructure things that we had to take care of. So that was very important for us. We're taking care of that. That should be wrapped up in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then we can really concentrate on moving forward the way we need to. BKFC has been a little bit quiet in the past couple of months, and it's only because we've been dealing with some things that we had to deal with to make sure that we can move forward the way we have to. And that's what we're doing.
I love it. Let's talk about BKFC Ice Wars to close things out. Ian Heinisch deeply involved in curating this BKFC spinoff. How did this all come together?
I had a guy named Charlie Nama, who's actually the main guy behind BKFC Ice Wars, and he was trying to help me out with some other things. He did an event in Edmonton at a casino where we did an event, and we just started talking, and he became a real great guy. And he brought the idea, and I was like, I don't think so. And then he actually let me talk about how we can evolve it, and I talked about the evolvement of it, and then I said, yeah, man, let's put our name on it. Let's get this thing going. We had a great inaugural event with BKFC this past Saturday. The crowd was just insane. We are going to tweak some rules to make it a little bit more exciting, and I'm excited about the future of BKFC Ice Wars. I think it definitely has legs.
Would there be other, projects like this for BKFC, offshoots or other leagues that you guys create?
Yeah, we're working on one right now. And I think people are going to really like this one if we can get this off the ground as well. I think we're going to. It's it's basically an Asian-based company, but I think it's and promotion and sport for that matter. But I think it's something we're going to be able to bring to the United States and put a little virality behind that and blow that thing up.
I love it. Dave Feldman, always have something cooking in all areas, man. Truly a pleasure to catch up with you, sir. And I hope we can connect soon.
Take care, Ben. Thanks.
Massive thank you to Dave Feldman for stopping by the Combat Zone. Still more to come here. Stay tuned. Up next. Folks, welcome back to the Combat Zone. The first ever event in Azerbaijan, UFC Baku, goes down Saturday night. And if you are one of the members of the Gambling Republic, here's a couple lines that might interest you.
The Penny Parlay.
So I'm packaging these all together. Main event, I think Khalil Roundtree by KO. Again, I spoke about the concern with Jamal Hill's body, the wear and tear, where his mentality is at. Back-to-back KO defeats. I think Khalil Roundtree is going to serve him a third. Now, give me Curtis Blades by knockout as well. I think that Kuniev is stepping up way too far into that heavyweight division, and the wrestling of Blades will render him unconscious. Give me Miktabek Oralbai by knockout as well. I mean, this guy Oralbai is a monster. We saw in his last fight with Mateusz Rebecki that he will just stand and trade, not afraid of the fire whatsoever, and I favor that power coming into Saturday's clash. Also give me Naseem Sadikov by KO. Now, this is interestingly lined at plus 300, but we've seen Nicholas Moda have some durability issues in the past, and I think Naseem Sadikov is coming to kill. So you put all that together, you get a parlay that comes out to about plus 1,000. 50, which if you lay $100 on it, gives you $100 grand. So that's sort of where my head's at with the paying parlay. Make sure you gamble responsibly and head over to the Bally's Sportsbook to lay down some lines. Folks, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Combat Zone. Massive thank you to Ian Parker and Dave Feldman for stopping by. Can't wait to catch up with both of them in the future. Truly appreciate you all. Make sure you tune in next week here on the Combat Zone.